Hello. Ah, good afternoon and welcome to Nurturing by Nature. We do a live every Friday, and this week we're going to go back to basics. So we've had quite a few people in recently starting out on a raw diet. So this is for those of you who are looking to start a raw diet, looking for a few hints and tips on improving what you're doing already, and going back to basics. So, first of all, benefits of raw feeding. They are absolutely huge, and anybody feeding a raw diet will, agree with me on this. So, one of the main things that people talk about is poo. The raw fed poo is a lot harder, a lot less smelly, and a lot cleaner to pick up. So that is a massive benefit in my book as for your dogs on a raw fed diet. We've also got the fact that your dog's teeth are usually cleaner because they're eating bones and a variety of foods to help to clean their teeth. Less trips for a dental, so the less plaque and build up on their teeth because the bones help to wear that off and clean the teeth. So cleaner teeth, less stinky poos, smaller poos as well. They are much smaller on a raw diet. Clear eyes, clear skin. Quite often dogs with a bit of scurf in their coat, you notice that clears up because they're getting extra essential oils from the food that they're eating that really suits them and it really works within their bodies. Allergies, animals that have allergies, you can control them nicely on a raw diet. You can bring the food in that you want to feed your dog and still maintain a balanced diet, and also avoid the products that you think are causing allergies. So there are loads of benefits. We have also had sad situations where people have come to us and they've said that, well, the vet says he's going to pass away anyway. There's nothing more the vet can do. Do you know what? I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to try a raw diet. And a lot of these times, feeding a natural diet, like a raw diet to that pet that can really deal with it appropriately, that dog or cat goes on to live a bit longer. We've had cats go into remission from diabetes that have been fed a raw diet. So there's loads of benefits to a raw diet. As long as you manage it correctly and you feed it safely, you will be absolutely fine. So if it's something that you're thinking of doing, trying a raw diet for your pet, I'd say go for it because the benefits are massive. So question number 1 is who can eat a raw diet? So we're talking about animals that we feed at Nurturing by Nature. Okay, yes, cool. So Mrs. Holmes has just said that her 12-week-old Canna Corso is on a raw diet. And how are you finding it? I'm sure the dog is loving it because another benefit, fussy dogs tend to eat a raw diet for sure because it means that they're actually eating what they want to eat and they smell the food and it smells good to them. So fussy dogs can also benefit from eating a raw diet. So who can eat a raw diet? So at Nurturing by Nature, we generally feed cats and dogs, puppies and kittens. Ferrets, they are also an animal that can eat a raw diet. They are obligate carnivores along with cats, which means they have to have meat to survive. And I think the strangest visitor we ever had in store was a skunk. It was brought in and it ate raw food as well. So it's quite a varied diet. Skunk would eat things like small birds. So they fed the day-old chicks. It eats insects, berries and fruit. So that was quite cool. So that was probably the strangest visitor we had. But who can eat a raw diet? Cats, dogs, puppies, kittens and ferrets. And at no point in their life stage should you worry about changing your animal onto a raw diet because they will be able to cope with it. Yes, cats can definitely eat a raw diet. Mrs. Holmes, you should definitely try it for the cats. They can be fussier. Kittens, dead easy to get onto a raw diet. Cats, when they've got their own ways, sometimes it can be a little bit trickier. But if you persevere, and especially if your cat is showing an interest in your puppy's food, then do it, offer it to the cat as well because you're halfway there. Why does it make sense to feed a raw diet? Well, for animals like this with the sharp pointy teeth, they are designed to eat meat, rip flesh, and their bodies deal with meat and bones perfectly. Oh, great. Mrs. Holmes just said that they are always trying to eat it. So, yeah, I would take a lead from your cats there and see how they get on. And you will massively, if your cats are indoor or ever use a litter tray, you will notice a massive difference in their poo. Massive difference. You won't even smell it when they've gone generally. So that's really good. Okay, it makes sense because of their anatomy, digestion, and the results that it gives. So you will see their coat is shinier, younger. They almost, so one of the reasons when Mum started feeding a raw diet, she said Fred was around about 8 or so, and he'd become quite old because he was suffering from the cancers and going through lots of treatments. And when she started to feed him a raw diet, she said that he got his bounce back, and he was a boxer and they can be extremely bouncy. And he got his bounce back and he was a younger dog again after eating a raw diet. And that's something that we've heard since. It makes them feel good. So their anatomy and their digestion is really strong. They've got really strong digestive acids in their system that break down the raw food, break down the bone and the bacteria. So if there's any bacteria worries in any of the food, your dog out there in the world would eat a rotten carcass potentially, and they deal with it because their guts can kill off any nasty bacteria that's in that meat. But just so you know, our meat doesn't really have any bacteria in small amounts, acceptable levels, and we get exceptionally good results from our laboratory testing because we test everything as well. So how do I start feeding a raw diet? So there's a couple of ways that you can do it. It depends on your own situation at home. It depends on how you are, how the family is, how they feel about a raw diet. Sometimes you kind of have to persuade the rest of the family to feed a raw diet because it's ever so easy, isn't it? Taking a cup and scooping out some kibble and then tipping it into a bowl. That's a really easy way to feed, and some people just really like that convenience. However, once you start feeding a raw diet, you'll see the benefits in your pet, and you won't want to go back to that because the benefits outweigh the convenience. So 2 ways you can do it. You can transition over time, so you can introduce it slowly. You would feed small amounts of raw and small amounts of their original diet and gradually increase the raw and decrease what they were having before. So that would be the best way. Mrs. Holmes just said that her dog won't touch kibble anymore. So, you know, they're showing you what they want and what's good for them. So that's amazing. I'd love to see some photos if you get the opportunity. So transitioning over time, you can do that over 1 week, over 2 weeks, whatever suits you. But start by feeding bigger, smaller biscuits or whatever they're used to having, smaller meals of that, and raw meals, and increasing the raw and decreasing what they're having, other like the biscuits or the wet food that they're having, and do it over time. So you can do that over 1 week, you can do that over 2 weeks, and you can just weigh it in as they need to have it. So I'll go through on how much to feed in just a moment. The other option is you can just go for it 100%. You can feed raw. The best way probably originally is just to introduce lots of little meals of raw diet and then break it down into 1 meal or 2 meals or however you like to feed. But for the first couple of days ago, lots of small meals works really well because you don't want to overload their tummies. But honestly, they're so resilient, these animals. Dogs especially. Like I said before, cats can be a little bit tricky, and although Mrs. Holmes here obviously is very lucky, not all cats will eat a raw diet. Not all cats can be bothered. Some cats, like ours, go off around the neighborhood and have a meal wherever you go. So, you know, we have to deal with him separately. He does eat raw. He eats the chicks. He eats some of the minces, but I also feed him balanced biscuit as well, which is not a biscuit. It's got no biscuit in it. It's just a blend. It's an origin Nakana, and it's a blend of meat and a few veggies. But that's how we deal with fudge. But ideally, if he was on 100% raw, that would be much better for him. Totally. So cats, you can introduce tiny little amounts of raw onto their plates with their normal food. Don't mix it in, put it on the side. Eventually you could mix it in, but it's good to give cats a choice because they have to eat. You need to make sure they eat. You don't want them to be poorly. And then how much do you feed? So what you can do, it depends on the age of your pet. If you've got an adult animal that you're transitioning onto a raw diet, cats would have around 2% of their body weight in meat per day. That's over the whole day. And dogs would have between 2 to 3% of their weight in meat per day. So a 5 kilo cat, that's a big cat, Emma. That would be 2%. That would be 100 grams of meat. We do our meats in 2 different sizes, and this is quite a handy size for cats. And if you've already got a dog, then you'll probably be getting the bigger ones, but we've got the 500 and we've got the 200 grams. That's 200 grams in there. Half of that for a 5 kilo cat. I mean, that's a big cat, right? Generally, cats about 3 kilos, they would have 2%, which is about 60 grams. So one of these 500 gram pouches, based on that, that's going to give you 8 days of food for a cat. And at under £2, that's pretty good going. So that's the 200, that's the 500 grams of meat. And that's what we do. We don't add any vegetables to cats' food. We would add some vegetables and fruits to maybe a dog's food if you want to. So it has to be what you would like. They don't have to have fruit and veggies, but what it does do, it does add extra vitamins and minerals into their meals, so that they can get a more balanced and varied diet, which is a really important thing to consider as you go on through. So puppies and kittens, however, have a lot more for their size, because when they're little, when they come home to you, first time when they're home to you, 8-9 weeks old, that is when they're doing their most growing. That is when everything starts to grow. They almost sort of double within 3 or 4 weeks sometimes, depending on the breed. You will notice this is when they're doing their major amounts of growing. So puppies and kittens can have up to 10% of their body weight in meat per day. An average maybe golden retriever puppy comes home to you around about 7 grams. So you would be feeding 700 grams of meat to that puppy over the day, up to. So you might not find your puppy wants to eat all of that. Some breeds will eat all of it, some breeds won't. So your puppy can regulate, and they won't necessarily eat it if they don't need it. But generally they'll probably eat up to 700 grams for a 7 kilo puppy when you first bring them home. Kittens, up to 10% of their body weight as well. If I've written the kitten idea down, no, but kittens. So a 2 kilo puppy, so like a tiny breed. So this would be more of a golden retriever type of breed. A 2 kilo puppy, smaller dog, they would have up to one of these packets a day, so up to 200 grams a day. That's the puppy coming home weighing 2 kilos with you. Or a kilo kitten, 100 grams a day. But they might not eat all of that. But it's so much easier getting a kitten onto a raw diet than it is getting an adult cat. When your dog grows up a little bit, don't be surprised, and we hear this all the time, he's gone off his food, because they're not growing quite so much as they were. They don't need to eat as much. So don't worry about that. You're just going to reduce the amount they're going to be fed, around about 5% of their body weight. So yeah, teenage dogs, sort of a 6-7 months old, 5 to 8 months or so, people come in and go, well, he loved his raw food, but now he's gone off it. It's only because you're feeding him too much. He doesn't need quite as much anymore. So you would reduce it down to around about 5% of their body weight, because they are growing up. They're getting bigger and they've done their major growth already. They don't need that 10% to grow so much. They just don't need quite so much when they're at that sort of age, 6 to 7 months. So what do I feed in this time? So whether you've got an adult dog, an elderly dog, or a puppy, when you come in to see us at Nurturing by Nature in the stores or online, give us a call. We would generally start you off on the chicken, which is this one here. This is 100% minced chicken, and that would be what you're giving for the first week. Obviously, we need to apply what is correct for you and your home situation, but you can get around about 20 of these nicely in one of the freezer drawers. And and that should keep you going for a bit. And that's just the plain chicken. We put it in this pouch, and when you defrost it, put it into a tub, take it out of the pouch so that it doesn't get mucky, put it into the tub, defrost it in the fridge, and that will keep it nice and safe. You're going to keep the temperature down and the bacteria level stay lower. Bacteria starts growing above 5 degrees. Okay, so our first week is chicken, and we use the mince because it's already broken down for them. There is bone in our mince, so they get the bone, and that's one of the things that helps to make the poo a lot harder. So the bone is in the food already. There are some of the minces like this one here, the beef, that's got no bone in. So you might want to prefer to start on that, but we tend to start on chicken because it's a really appropriate food for your dog. A dog or a cat could easily catch, kill, and eat a chicken. So that's why we think it's absolutely appropriate. Some people worry about allergies. Generally, we don't see that much because it's raw. But yes, you could avoid chicken and start off on a fish if you wanted to, maybe like a white fish if you were worried about allergies. But seriously, it's really easy starting them off on a chicken. And because it's already been minced down for them, some of the work's already done. But you do want to utilize their teeth later on, and I'll come on to that. So for week 2, we're going to use the chicken, and then we might add in 2 other proteins. So say lamb and a fish, so maybe oily fish or a white fish, and then we're going to rotate that around the week. It's important to know that animals will keep hold of vitamins and minerals in their system over a period of time. So if you were just feeding one protein source for a week, I wouldn't worry. If you're doing it for 5 weeks, you need to introduce more proteins in to give them more variety. So on the second week, we're going to do chicken and then 2 other proteins. And then our third week, we're going to do chicken, those 2 proteins, and 3 others if we can, depending on what's available and what suits you and your situation. So around about 6 different proteins, including the chicken, on our third week. When we get into week 4, we're going to look to introduce some bones. But if you have a look back over some of my previous videos, there's quite a lot of information on what each item has in it, because there's certain vitamins and minerals that your dog needs over their time, and you have to find that in the food that you're giving them. So you might want to, liver is a powerhouse. You should definitely think about feeding liver. You should definitely think about including these little fish, the oily fish, and we do this minced, or we can do it in with the chicken, or you can do them. And these are IQF. So there's a kilo there, and they're individually frozen. IQF stands for individually quick frozen, but it just means they're individual in the packet. So you can just take out 1 or 2 if you want to. So that's a great addition. And these are full of excellent oils for your dog. And if you can feed oils that are animal sourced, it's better for them because they don't break down the cellulose in the plant oils as much as they do with the oils from the animals. So fish oils are fantastic for your dogs and cats. So we're looking at feeding a variety. You can include liver in their food. You can feed hearts. Hearts are great. They can be richer, but hearts are an excellent source of taurine, which is essential for cats. They must have taurine. So our liver will have taurine as well. So that's a good one to add. Some animals don't like the liver. Some animals absolutely like it. It would be something that the first animals onto a carcass would eat was the liver, because it's full of the goodness. They used to eat the brain. That's really good for them as well. And then you can include vegetables in the diet if you want to. They are an excellent way of adding in vitamins and minerals to your food. And you can do it by using things like the Dorwest with the Keepers mix, which is this one here. Easy Green's quite nice as well because it's the green leafy vegetables which have been blended down. And what Mum does is she varies it over time. She'll just get a pot at a time, and then when it's finished up, she moves on to something different. When that's finished up, she'll move into something different as well. Something like the Smart Bath, that's a blend of vegetables with seeds and fruits in. Also, have a look back and see about the vegetables, because you can take a bag of salad, the leafy green veg, put it in the freezer, things like the spinach or the kale, in the freezer, scrunch it up, and you can put that on their food as well. And leafy greens are excellent for dogs. It's much better than feeding carrots and things. Veg isn't necessary for cats. So you will go through the supermarkets and you will see absolutely loads of food with vegetables in for cats. It's a filler. They don't need it. It's nothing. They do not need that in their diet. So don't worry about adding vegetables to a cat's diet. You can leave that out. But dogs deal with it. They can break it down a little, but it needs to be broken down for them. So if you were to put a whole carrot in your dog's bowl, they'll eat it. They'll enjoy it. So if you're feeding it for pleasure, then that's fine. But it will also come out looking a lot like carrot because dogs can't break down cellulose. They don't have the grinding abilities in their teeth to blend them down enough. You know, like the herbivores, they've got these great big flat teeth in the back of horses and cows, and their front teeth are flat, and that's what they do. They grind the food, and then they can digest it. Whereas dogs and cats have a jaw that works like this. They can't move their jaw side to side like we do, so, or like a cow or a horse can. So dogs and cats just do this, where they bite the food, they get it with the sharp pointy teeth at the front, they chomp it with these big back ones here, and they swallow it down. And they want to get it in as quick as possible so no one else gets it. So week 4, we're going to look at introducing some bones. Now, cats can have bones too, and they do enjoy them, and it's a great way to get their teeth nice and clean. For a cat, bones-wise, I'd probably look at feeding things like a chicken neck or maybe a day-old chick. My cat Fudge, he has a day-old chick. He absolutely loves them. And that's also what they were feeding the raptors on the weekend. So they had we saw a display with traditional falconry, and they were feeding the day-old chicks to those birds. So these are chicken necks. These are quite small and more suitable for a small breed dog or a small cat, and a cat can eat all of those. Some cats can't be bothered though. Some cats are incredibly lazy and chewing. Ugh, you know, that's not for me. But they will quite happily eat and catch and kill a little mouse or something outside, and they probably eat all of that. That's another way of them cleaning their teeth. So other bones you can introduce in around about 4 weeks or sooner, potentially, depending on your size of dog, what breed you're feeding. You've got carcasses. Now, you don't actually have to wait until 4 weeks to start feeding the carcass. You could almost introduce these on a carcass in week 2 or week 3 because they're really soft. These birds don't get to live for very long, so their bones aren't completely calcified. The ossification of the bones hasn't occurred. You've got a flexible rib cage. You've got a lot of cartilage in here, lots of meat and skin. All of that is good for your dog, and it's really easy for them to eat. Probably the hardest part is this bit through here, which is like the spine for the animal, but they crunch through that in no time, and puppies will eat this. I've heard, I had a vet that used to have whippets, and she said the mummy whippet used to go and get the carcasses and give them to the puppies when they were 4 or 5 weeks old, and they got on with them and they were absolutely fine. So carcasses are a great option, certainly at week 4, but you can almost include these week 2 onwards potentially if you know that your dog will cope with it okay and that you're happy to feed it, because not everyone wants to see their dog eating a bone. Not everyone likes the sound of it. So when you're looking for bones, we're going to look for meaty bones. This is a good example. This is one of our little lamb ribs. This is the rib, and it's meaty. Okay, so when you're looking for a bone, you don't want a bone that looks like a finger like this with all the meat missing in between. You want bones with the meat on, because that is important to help balance out the bone. And when you're feeding a bony meal, you can balance it out with a non-bone meal, like maybe the beef, for example. That's 100% minced beef. It's got tripe and meat in there, and that hasn't got any bone in. So bony meal, balance it. And that's what we do. So Nurturing by Nature, we don't offer a complete diet. We offer a complete diet over time, and we will give you all the help that we possibly can to bring you on board and help you along the way. And there's always someone on the phone. There's 3 shops open over the weekend, and you've got 3 open on a Sunday now. So Westmore's will be open on a Sunday, Upton open on a Saturday, but Christchurch and Pamp Hill all open. So there's someone on the end of the phone during the day that you could call if you're not quite sure, and we're happy to help if we can. And then week 5 and beyond, really, you need to try as much as you're comfortable with, as much as your pet is comfortable eating, and you need to feed a variety over time, which is why we offer such a variety. And it doesn't have to be raw. So if you're thinking about feeding a different protein and you can't get it in a raw form, you could feed it dried. If you're happy to feed something like the rabbit ears with some fur on, They're a really good different protein source. Furry, all of them seem to quite enjoy these. They've got a bit of meat on them and they're just dried. So they are gently dried, but they are dried rabbits here. There's no bone in that. We don't sell any bones that are dried. We don't think it's quite right because they have been heat processed, which means they've been cooked in a certain way. But some people do, and they are out there. If you don't like the hairy rabbit ears, you can get these plain ones. But personally, the hairy ones seem better. And you even notice a bit of the hair in the poo, so it passes through. And some people say it's a wormer. The way it could be described as a wormer would be that it helps the fur helps to bring any parasites through. So that's why it can help with the guts and keeping the guts clean. So hairy chews are a good thing. So you're looking for a different protein. There we go. We've got some rabbit. So that's really easy. You've got something like some lambs. And the lamb ears, I've got hairy ones as well, but these are lamb ears. Different protein again. And then you can make it a bit of fun. You've got a bit of pig, you've got the sprat. So if you don't want to feed raw fish, you can feed dried fish, full of excellent oils still, more concentrated because they're dried, but brilliant for them. You've got something like a trachea, which you can then stuff. So if you want your dog's meals to last a bit longer, this is a trachea. This is a cow trachea. So sometimes they're called moo tubes potentially, and you can get your soft mince, and once it's defrosted, you can stuff it through here, put it back in the freezer, and that gives you a really good chew with extra protein and different vitamins and minerals because you're feeding this, which is a cartilage. So it's not a bone, it's more of a cartilage. It's part of the cow. It's quite hard. The dogs enjoy it. It helps to clean their teeth. So a nice natural teeth cleaner if you don't like feeding bones. And you can stuff it full of mince, and most dogs absolutely love it. So that could be an option for you. So again, different protein source, and you can apply that to most things that you get. So hopefully that's helped you out and given you some ideas. We should probably go through things to avoid, actually, just quickly. There's not much that you need to avoid when feeding a raw diet. There's certain vegetables that you shouldn't feed, and you don't want to feed excessive amounts of certain things. So we would avoid onion. Onion is bad for them. They've done sort of tests on onions. Onions don't digest. They release some sort of toxin, so that onions should be avoided, cooked and raw. Weight-bearing bones you can feed as long as they're supervised. So this would be an example of a weight-bearing bone, the marrow bones. Loads of dogs love these. You can restuff them. They're definitely not a bad thing, but they are a leg bone of a cow, and a cow is very heavy. So you want to make sure the dog isn't going to damage their teeth on this, so you don't leave them to chew and chew and chew on that ongoing. You can restuff it. That's good fun. So like we do with the trachea, you can restuff the marrow bones a few times, and they'll eat the meat and they'll eat everything off it. And once they're finished with it, you either throw it away or put it back in the freezer for another time to restuff it. Too much offal. You want to avoid feeding too much offal because it will end up coming out the other end like a waterfall. So if you feed too much things like liver, so the offal is known as a secreting organ. So livers, kidney, spleen, those are very rich, and they can end up giving your dog a runny tummy. But you can use that to your benefit potentially. So if you've got a dog that's eaten too much bone and need to clear them out, you could use that as an option. I would avoid that though, because it can give them a very runny tummy. So too much offal will produce that. Chocolate full of a chemical I think called theobromine, and chocolate is very poisonous to dogs in certain measures. The darker the chocolate, the more poisonous it is. And I mentioned it before, bones with no meat on, unless you are feeding it as a recreational bone. You want to look for bones that are nice and meaty, because then you end up with too much bone, not enough balance of meat and bone, and then you end up with constipation. So you don't want that to happen. So generally, there's not that much that you need to avoid. So your onion, chocolate, some nuts. So some nuts have a mold on them that the dogs don't get on with. They can make them poorly. And another thing you should definitely not let your dog eat is compost. Compost is full of lots of bacteria. It's very active. So it's probably smells appealing and can be quite tasty for your dog, but do not let them eat compost because it can be quite bad for them. Chicken legs, yes, they can have chicken legs. They can have the whole leg with the thigh and the leg attached, or they can have the drumstick. We do the drumsticks at Nurturing by Nature, the thighs, and actually the muscle meat. So like the dark meat, when you have a chicken, you've got the white meat and the dark meat. The more muscle meat, that's got more taurine in, so they're good for cats. Yes, chicken legs for cats, chicken wings for cats. I have seen a video of a cat eating a lamb rib. It depends on the breed. The more exotic breed of cat will be more up for it, if you know what I mean. We had a lady who used to feed, she had quite a few Sphinx, and she used to feed them tripe. Now, cats generally like food that's fresh, and I wouldn't expect a cat to eat tripe, but they loved it because they were a bit more exotic, they're a bit more crazy, as was so they climb up you when you turn up with the food. So cats that are like that will probably eat a bit more of the Bengal types or the Sphinx. They'll go for it a bit more. The more domestic short-haired tabby, they tend to not be as easy to get onto a raw diet. But once you've done it, they love it and they really benefit from it. So we've got some common concerns to go over. Misconceptions maybe with a raw diet: salmonella, bacteria. So we test everything that we make. It goes off to an independent laboratory. We don't test it in-house. It goes off for independent testing, and we test it for Enterobacteriaceae and salmonella. One of the reasons we stopped having the duck is because it used to come back with salmonella on a frequent basis, because as ducks produce for humans, they don't have to test for it because you're going to be cooking it. So ducks don't have to be tested for salmonella. So we ended up having so many test results back positive with salmonella, we have to throw it away. If it comes back positive with salmonella, it has to be recalled and has to be thrown away. So we haven't done duck for a long time because of that. So you just need to be aware of that. Enterobacteriaceae, those are harmful bacteria within the food. Our results that we have to adhere to are actually even, the testing results are even higher than they are for human food, because generally the supermarkets and the butchers, when you buy that, you're going to cook it and you're going to kill off that bacteria. So our results are more stringent than they are for human food. I think one of the companies that we were using previously, when we said about the levels that we have to get to, they're like, that's almost impossible. So, but we do, and it's fine. The levels are really low for those sort of bacteria, and we get excellent results because we treat everything absolutely correctly in our factory, in our production facility. It's really stringent. We've got lots of rules that we stick to, even though we don't have to. These are rules that we've set up to make sure that your pet food stays safe. Okay. Balancing out your food. So as long as you feed a variety, so common concerns are that if you're just feeding chicken, you're not going to be giving enough, and that's correct. If you just feed chicken, you're not going to get enough vitamins and minerals over time for your pet. They won't, they'll survive, but they won't thrive. You need to feed a variety over time to give your pet everything that they need. And what if your vet says no? Because a lot of vets don't like you feeding a raw diet. There's a lot more out there that are up for it now. They're happy for you to feed a raw diet. If you're not happy with what your choices for your vet, then you just walk with your feet, or you say, these are my choices, it's my decision. I make sure that I feed a variety over time. I feed different proteins. I look at the vitamins and minerals that are found in different foods. Nurturing by Nature are really helpful. We'll always help you through these things. And we've got loads of videos on our YouTube site, so you can catch up on those. We've got millions of blog articles as well on the website. So if you've got any queries and you're not sure, get in touch and we'll send you some blog articles on what to do, how to do it, what's good, what's bad. So we've got lots of information on our website, so you should be able to get everything that you need from us. So if your vet says no, you can reassure them to say that you know what you're doing, you're quite happy, or you can vote with your feet. Vets do have nutritional training, but it's very minimal, and unless they go on to actually do further nutritional training in practice or as part of their continued professional development, they don't know everything, and they have got a lot to cover in their time at vet school, because they have to know how to look after various things with all the animals that we own. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you so much for all your questions as well. That's been really great. If you ever need anything else, then do get in touch. We're open all weekend. I'll be in store as well, so come along and see us, and we're happy to go through everything. And thank you very much, Mrs. Holmes, for your questions on the cats, and I hope you find that the raw food suits them, and I think you'll see a massive difference in their poo as well. So all right, thanks ever so much for joining us. Take it easy.